The Forrester family was thrown into a whirlwind of confusion and grief when the beloved Caroline Spencer was found dead under mysterious circumstances. The news of her death was a devastating blow to everyone who knew her, especially to Thomas Forrester, her ex-husband, and the Forrester family as a whole. Caroline had always been a part of their lives, and her sudden and unexplained death left them all grappling with uncertainty and suspicion. As the family began to mourn her loss, questions quickly began to emerge. Was her death truly an accident, or had something more sinister occurred behind closed doors? Everyone had their theories, but the most chilling possibility was that Caroline's death was no accident at all. It was murder. Thomas, already a complicated figure within the Forrester family, became the primary suspect in the investigation. His history with Caroline had been troubled, marked by their rocky marriage and emotional turmoil. The love he once felt for her had turned into an obsession, one that had haunted him for years after their divorce. Many members of the Forrester family began to whisper that Thomas had finally taken his obsession too far. Had his desire for Caroline ever truly faded, or had it morphed into something darker and more dangerous? As the investigation into Caroline's death unfolded, the Forrester family was forced to confront uncomfortable truths. Thomas, who had once been viewed as a devoted and passionate man, now appeared as a man trapped by his own desires and ambitions. The suspicion surrounding him grew with each passing day, and it seemed that no one was immune from the shadow of doubt. His past behavior, his obsessive tendencies, and his intense feelings for Caroline made him the prime suspect. But as the family dug deeper into the circumstances surrounding Caroline's death, they began to realize that nothing was as it seemed, and the truth was far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. The more the family investigated, the more they discovered about Caroline's life that they had never known. Caroline had always been a woman with a certain air of mystery surrounding her, but as they peeled back the layers, they began to uncover unsettling secrets. Caroline's life had been filled with complicated relationships, and it became clear that she had been hiding more than just her personal struggles. Her death was not as straightforward as it initially appeared, and soon, suspicions about her own involvement in some of the darker events in the Forrester family's history started to surface. One of the most shocking revelations came when it was revealed that Caroline had been planning to expose a series of deep-seated secrets that threatened to destroy the Forrester family. Among the secrets she was about to reveal were accusations that Ridge and Thomas Forrester had been involved in an attempt to kill her. The motive, as it turned out, was tied to Thomas's obsessive desire to be with Hope Logan, a woman who had never reciprocated his feelings in the way he had hoped. Caroline, who had once been a part of his life and had known him better than anyone, had become a target in Thomas's mind, a casualty of his twisted obsession. But Caroline had survived the attempt on her life and had lived to tell the tale, or so she thought. In the days before her death, Caroline had become increasingly vocal about the truth she had uncovered. She had intended to confront Thomas and Ridge, to expose their wrongdoings and bring justice for the crimes they had committed. She believed that if she could reveal their secrets, she would finally be able to rid herself of the shadow that had haunted her since her return to Los Angeles. But as she prepared to confront them, Caroline's fate took a tragic turn. The once strong and determined woman was found dead, and the Forrester family was left to question whether someone within their own circle had been involved in her death. Had Ridge or Thomas been behind the fatal events that led to Caroline's demise? The family was left in turmoil as they tried to piece together the truth. Caroline had been a part of their world for so long, and now her death threatened to tear them apart. The accusations against Thomas and Ridge seemed too unbelievable to be true, yet the evidence was mounting. Caroline's return to Los Angeles had not been a simple reunion with old friends and family. It had been the beginning of a long, drawn-out battle to expose the darkest corners of the Forrester family. Her death, it seemed, had been the final act in a much larger game, one that was fueled by love, hatred, and a thirst for revenge. As the Forrester family struggled to come to terms with Caroline's death, they also had to face the reality that the woman they thought they knew was not who she had appeared to be. Caroline's motivations for returning were revealed to be far more complex than anyone had imagined. She had returned to Los Angeles not just to make amends with her past, but to confront the very people who had once been her closest allies. In a cruel twist of fate, it seemed that Caroline had become both a victim and a martyr in a battle that no one had expected. The investigation continued, with the family members of the Forrester clan divided between their loyalty to each other and their desire for justice. Thomas, once the center of suspicion, became even more isolated as the truth about his involvement with Caroline began to emerge. The once beloved and charismatic man seemed to be unraveling before their eyes, his obsession with hope turning into something far more sinister. Thomas was no longer just a victim of his own desires. He had become a player in a much larger and far more dangerous game. His past relationships, his obsession with hope, and his role in Caroline's death cast a dark shadow over his reputation, and it seemed that the Forrester family's troubles were far from over. Ridge, too, found himself caught in the web of suspicion. Although the evidence against him was less direct, his role in Caroline's life and his complicated history with her made him a key figure in the investigation. As the investigation into Caroline's death deepened, it became clear that Ridge's past actions could not be ignored. His connections to Caroline, his volatile relationships, and his own secrets made him a prime suspect in the case. Ridge, a man who had always been a powerful figure within the Forrester family, now found himself questioning his own role in the events that had led to Caroline's death. Could he have been involved, even unintentionally, in her demise? Was he capable of such a heinous act? As the family wrestled with these unsettling revelations, the truth about Caroline's life and her death began to emerge piece by piece. It was clear that she had been a woman with a mission, and her final days had been spent uncovering secrets that had been buried for years. She had been determined to bring Thomas and Ridge to justice, to expose the darker sides of their personalities, and to prove that they had been responsible for the crimes committed against her. But now, with Caroline gone, it was up to the Forrester family to face the consequences of their actions and to confront the truth about the role they had played in her tragic end. In the aftermath of Caroline's death, the Forrester family found themselves at a crossroads. The ties that had once bound them together had been severed, and the family was now embroiled in a battle that was not just about business or legacy, but about love, betrayal, and the quest for justice. The truth about Caroline's death was far from clear, and the consequences of her murder, whether it was Thomas, Ridge, or someone else entirely who was responsible, remained to be seen. What was certain, however, was that the Forrester family would never be the same again. The price of ambition, obsession, and revenge had taken its toll, and the battle for redemption would be long and painful. As the family came to terms with the events that had shattered their world, one thing was undeniable. Caroline's death had ignited a war between love and hate, a war that would forever change the Forrester family. The Forrester family, once a symbol of unity and success, had been torn apart by scandal, betrayal, and the shocking death of Caroline Spencer. As the investigation progressed, the web of suspicion surrounding Ridge and Thomas grew tighter. The truth, hidden for so long under layers of deceit and manipulation, was starting to surface. Despite their denials, the evidence against both men was mounting, and the Forrester family's once unshakable foundation was now crumbling. The police had conducted a thorough investigation into Caroline's death, and it became increasingly clear that Ridge and Thomas had been involved in her tragic demise. It wasn't just the rumors or the mounting accusations that led to their arrest, it was the cold, hard facts. The forensic evidence, Caroline's final statements before her death, and the testimonies of those close to the Forrester family painted a chilling picture of what had transpired. Caroline's allegations that both Ridge and Thomas had tried to kill her to eliminate her as a threat had been confirmed in part. The conspiracy to murder her, driven by Thomas's obsession with Hope Logan and Ridge's desire to protect his family legacy, had escalated into something far darker than anyone could have imagined. Ridge Forrester, once the beloved patriarch of the family, found himself shackled and escorted out of Forrester Creations. The man who had commanded the respect and admiration of the fashion world was now facing the harsh reality of the law. His past, filled with powerful relationships and business deals, now felt like a distant memory. His legacy, once secure, was hanging by a thread. The family that had supported him through every trial was now witnessing his downfall firsthand. Ridge's mind raced, and his heart ached as he was led through the doors of the police station. How had it come to this? He had been a man of influence, a leader in the fashion industry, and now he was a criminal, accused of a heinous act. Beside him, Thomas was struggling with the weight of the situation in his own way. His obsession with Hope, his desire for control, and his growing obsession with Caroline had clouded his judgment and led him down a path from which there was no return. He had always been a complex figure, passionate, driven, but deeply flawed. Now, facing charges for his role in Caroline's death, Thomas was consumed with guilt and confusion. How had he allowed himself to go this far? The love he had once felt for Caroline had twisted into something darker, and it was only after her death that he fully realized the consequences of his actions. The Forrester family, who had once stood united in the face of challenges, was now fractured. Brooke, who had always been at Ridge's side, was beside herself with grief and disbelief. The man she had loved for so long, the father of her children, was now behind bars, accused of a crime that seemed impossible to reconcile with the man she thought she knew. She had always believed in Ridge's goodness, in his integrity, but the allegations against him were too overwhelming to ignore. The pain of seeing him arrested, of seeing their family name dragged through the mud, was more than Brooke could bear. But even in her anguish, she knew that she had to be strong. For herself, for her children, and for the family that had once been the heart of Los Angeles's fashion industry. Steffi, too, was devastated. Her world, already shaken by the trauma of her accident, was now further shattered by the arrest of her father and brother. She had always been close to Ridge, and though their relationship had been strained at times, she had never imagined that he could be involved in something so horrific. The thought that her father could have tried to kill Caroline, a woman who had once been a part of their family, was too much for her to comprehend. Steffi found herself caught in the middle of the chaos, struggling to make sense of it all. The family she had known, the empire they had built, was unraveling before her eyes. As the days passed, Ridge and Thomas were kept in separate holding cells, each consumed by the weight of their actions. The police had gathered overwhelming evidence that pointed to their involvement in the conspiracy to murder Caroline. Caroline's own accusations against them had been enough to convince investigators that they were the masterminds behind the crime. The shocking discovery of a hidden conversation between Ridge and Thomas, one in which they discussed eliminating Caroline as a threat, was the final blow to their defense. They had been so careful, so calculating, but in the end, their lies had caught up with them. The Forrester family's empire, once a shining beacon of success, now seemed to be collapsing under the weight of scandal. Forrester Creations, a company that had withstood decades of challenges, was now facing the ultimate test. The family's involvement in Caroline's death was no longer just a matter of suspicion, it was the reality they had to confront. The public's opinion of the Forresters had changed overnight, and the fallout from Ridge and Thomas's arrests would be felt for years to come. The company's stock plummeted, and the future of Forrester Creations became uncertain. The trial that followed was a media spectacle, with the entire world watching as the Forrester family was put under a microscope. Ridge and Thomas's defense teams worked tirelessly to try to prove their innocence, but the case against them was damning. The testimony from Caroline's friends and colleagues, her final words, and the mounting evidence pointed directly to them. The Forrester family, once so proud and powerful, was now under siege, with every part of their personal lives laid bare for the public to scrutinize. Brooke was torn. She stood by her husband through thick and thin, but this was different. The accusations against Ridge were too severe to ignore, and she found herself questioning everything she had believed about him. Could the man she had loved for so many years truly be capable of such a terrible act? Brooke tried to remain hopeful, but the evidence was undeniable. She knew that the road ahead would be long, and that the pain of the trial would haunt their family for years to come. The trial was not just about Ridge and Thomas, it was about the very foundation of the Forrester family, the values they had built their empire on, and whether those values could ever be restored. As the courtroom drama unfolded, the Forrester family found themselves facing their darkest hour. Ridge and Thomas's fate was uncertain, but the damage to their legacy was already done. Forrester Creations was teetering on the edge of collapse, and the family's reputation had been irrevocably tarnished. The trial revealed the deep rifts within the Forrester family, and the tension between the family members became palpable. Brooke, Steffi, and the rest of the Forresters had to confront the painful reality that the family they had once been so proud of was no longer the same. The future of Forrester Creations and the Forrester name was hanging by a thread. In the end, the trial would reveal the truth, but no matter the outcome, the Forrester family would never be the same again. Ridge and Thomas's arrests had torn apart the very fabric of their world, and even if they were acquitted or sentenced, the emotional and psychological scars would remain. The once mighty Forrester empire was now faced with the task of rebuilding from the ruins of scandal, betrayal, and broken trust. The question that lingered in the air was simple. Could the Forrester family ever truly recover from the damage caused by Ridge and Thomas's actions, or had the seeds of their destruction been sown too deeply to overcome?
Oh.